We did a closer look at this Republican counterproposal. Only about a quarter of the actual money in this counterproposal is actually what's called new spending. The rest comes from existing spending. They haven't budged really on how to pay for it either. So from President Biden's speech today in Ohio, it doesn't sound like he wants to budge much either. So bottom line, is compromise here really on the table?
Well, I think it can be. We've definitely seen movement. We're getting closer. There's still clearly a lot of daylight between us. But, part of what we saw that was encouraging today was Republicans embraced the concept that a major investment in the neighborhood of $1 trillion is appropriate at this moment in American history. As you said, when you dig into the numbers, obviously a lot of differences. And we do have concerns about things that the president cares about that we think are very important that we don't see reflected in there, like substantial increases for rail and transit, or I don't think the things we've been talking about in terms of the power grid are reflected there. So clearly a lot of work to do before these would be meeting in the middle. But I do think that there's progress, and we've really valued the conversations that have happened. They've been transparent, they've been straightforward, and given that we started very far apart, there's really been, I think, a lot of healthy dialogue up to this point.
Yeah, I will point out, as I suggested, that of the nearly $1 trillion Republican counterproposal, only according to Republican aides, $257 billion is new spending. The rest comes from existing funds. The White House the White House's latest proposal is about $1.7 trillion. Your colleague, your Democratic friend Elizabeth Warren, said the pandemic provided the opportunity to, quote, expand our idea of what infrastructure means. So isn't that the Republican criticism right now, that Democrats are simply throwing every pet issue into this plan and labeling it as infrastructure?
Well, I wouldn't only say that the pandemic provided an opportunity to rethink things. I think the pandemic forced us to rethink things, because one of the things we saw is that as a country, we were not as resilient as we need to be in the face of a major shock like the pandemic. And so it's forced us to reassess not only things we've known for a long time need work, like our road and bridge infrastructure, but also things we can't just go on forever ignoring, like our care infrastructure, our health infrastructure, which is why we think those things fit together. Oh, this is not a moment for small measures. And that much, I think, everybody agrees on. Getting to agreement on the shape of it, the scope of it, the size of it, that's exactly where we are right now. As you know, this weekend is Memorial Day weekend. Congress will be leaving Washington, but we'll continue to be working with them so that by the time they're back in Washington on June 7th, I believe, there will be a clear direction going forward.
I hope you guys can reach some sort of deal. President Biden says we have to finish this pretty soon. Those are his words. But the administration is now blowing past earlier self-imposed deadlines. How soon is soon from your perspective?
Well, again, we wanted to see major progress by Memorial Day weekend, which is coming up on us now. And I think you're going to continue to see a lot of conversations with members of Congress through those next days. Just because they're not in Washington doesn't mean we won't be working with them remotely if need be, so that there really is a clear trajectory and we know where we stand as they return the following week, June 7th.
Yeah, these are really, really critical issues, to be sure. Infrastructure so important to our country. Let's get to another sensitive issue. The president, we're told, now plans to propose a $6 trillion budget as early as tomorrow. That would put federal spending at its highest level since World War II. It could put debt, by the way, at the highest levels in American history. So how do you justify that kind of enormous spending, Mr. Secretary, with the economy just now beginning to bounce back from the pandemic?
Well, it's precisely because of where the economy is that we need to do this. First of all, President Biden's economic vision is clearly working, adding jobs at a pace of 500,000 a month overall since he took office. And you look at the trajectory that we're on, we've done remarkable work, but we've got a long way to go, which is why we need a big vision. Now, with interest rates as low as they are, these are the conditions that call for us to make these kinds of investments. But let's be clear, the president has also proposed how to pay for them so that in the long run, the deficit goes down. That's one of the remarkable things about the jobs plan and the vision overall, is that the president's put forward how to pay for it without asking Americans making less than $400,000 to pay a penny more in taxes, without going to tax rates that are historically high. And it just demonstrates how out of whack our system has become, rewarding wealth when it should be rewarding work. It's time to fix that up. And when we do, alongside these investments, which we can't afford not to make, the result will be a stronger and more sound economy.